Welcome back to the series. And as promised, in this video, we're going to go ahead and look at this deploy script and this Nginx script. We're going to walk through the code together step by step. But before we get started, I just wanted to show you some other bash script based simple automation that I have in place. For example, start, stop, etc. And also think about this folder structure, right? I mean, we have our app up and running, that's fine, right? But you're going to need 5 others to do, right? 5 more apps. So you're not going to want to create this folder structure manually every time, right? So for that reason, I have an automation in place. And the way I designed it is everything, all the scripts you see, they depend on this one file, app.conf. This configuration file will be used to generate as many apps as we want, because if we replicate this folder structure, all we have to do is just change the variables in this file and you have yourself a new app in no time, right? So let me show you. All right, so we are back at our main hosting folder, and as you can see, we have our main app folder right here, and then we have a copy me folder and a start setup script, right? So let me show you what this script does. All right, so this is a very simple one. All it does is take a name from you, whatever the app name you prefer, and then replicates this folder, as you can see right here, replicates this folder and gives it that name that you are preferring, right? And thus it gives you an entire folder structure to start with. So let's just see it in action. Let's run it. All right, so now let's say this is the app name we want to prefer. Our subdomain or domain name dash next, because it's going to be a next application. And let's say we want port 6000 for this to start on, right? So hit enter and good. So now let's see, and we have ourselves a new folder structure. So let's check it out. Let me clear this, and now let's see this tree structure. So this is a very handy command. It will show you the tree structure and 2 levels down, right? So let's see. Boom, there you go. So now you have the backup folder, logs folder, the configuration files, and then all the scripts that you're going to be running and needing. And also another thing, ls-la, is a hidden file in there, .env.local, and this is the one the deployment script will use to create a application build, the production build, right? Okay, so now that said, as mentioned before, all the scripts depend on this app.conf, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and try to run one just to show you. See, this is a brand new folder, and we're gonna try to run deploy. And as mentioned before, the first question it asks is, do you have your .env.local ready, right? So at this point, the admin can go ahead and make this file ready. This is a manual process, and then we can say y, and boom, there you go. So this is just straight away going ahead and reading this app.conf file and showing you whatever it actually deciphered so far. And in this process, the admin looking at it right away will know, oh, now I have to replace this placeholders and to be able to begin the process, right? So let's get out. And this is just a sample one, so I don't want to mess with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and go inside our original app, and let's go run that tree structure again. All right, so this is what your whole folder structure is going to look like once you go through the whole process. You're going to see backup files, the config files are still there, the logs, are filled with backup logs, next deploy log, Nginx setup log, etc. And this is where you find all your scripts. And this is the GitHub clone that your script will bring in to start up the app, right? So now that we are here, let's try this simple to stop and start script, right? So let's look at it first. All right, so this is the simple stop script. As you can see here, this is also dependent on the app.conf configuration file. So if I just simply run it, there you go. It went ahead and ran the PM2 commands and stopped our server. And all the information it needed, it collected from the configuration file. Single point of source. And now let's check out the start script. So this is what it looks like, and it has some extra checks in there, as you'll see. So let's try to run it. Boom, there you go. It just went ahead and started your server, is back online. And now about those extra checks. See, now that it's already up, if I run it again, it's just gonna stop me saying, hey, your service is already running. So that's why I put all these checks in there so that we don't double up on starting services. Now, all that being said, now it is time for us to look at the main script, the deploy.py and Nginx SSL setup.py. All right, so right before we get to the code, especially the deploy.py, let's go over these steps very quickly one more time. Admin comes in, starts the deploy.py, immediately asks question about .env.local. If that is ready, admin says why, goes to the next part. It reads up the configuration variables and displays for verification. And if the admin says it's fine, hit Y, goes to the next step. This is where it stops and removes the previous service from the PM2 list so that we can have a fresh start. And then once hit Y, we go to the part number 3 where backup is generated. At this point, we grab this previous GitHub clone and put it under the backup folder with this naming convention. Next step, we just clone the GitHub repo, brand new one. If the old one's still sitting there, it goes ahead and removes it. And then, now that everything is in place, we go ahead and run npm install to install all the dependencies, move the .env.local to app root, and run the build process to create a production build. And now that everything is ready, next step would be starting the service that we stopped before, and thus our application is now available on the HTTP domain name 4000 port. And this entire time, every single step is writing to this next-deploy log. That said, let's hit the code. All right, so we are finally at the code. We are looking at deploy.py, which is under sh folder, under the CyberEyes Next 4000, the main host folder. Now that we know the location, let's widen it. All right, so here we are telling the script what to run this script with, which is Python 3. And then we are importing our necessary libraries. And right here, we are setting up the values of some of the main variables. For example, the path to the app.conf file and the logs directory, etc., building a timestamp, and naming and creating the name for the log file. And then we start part 1 by asking about the .env.local. If it's yes, then we move to the next part where we read up the app.conf file and use this dictionary, config dictionary, and fill it up with the collected key value pairs. And then we add timestamp to it, and we create this variable app root using those other variables, right? And this is where we're asking the admin, is the configuration correct? If he says Y, we move forward. Otherwise, we just exit out with this message. And at this point, we just write everything to the log, what we have just done so far. Once part 1 is done and written to the log successfully, we move to part number 2. And this is where we ask the admin whether or not to remove the previously running process from PM2 list, right? If the admin says yes, then we just go ahead and locate previous process and then stop the previous process gracefully. And every step of the way we do subprocess.run, and this is the command. And then we go ahead and remove it gracefully. And in the process, if there is any error, we just display that on screen and write to the log and exit out. All right, so at this point, we're just finished with part 1 and part 2. Now we just move on to part 3, where we back up everything. And this should be the naming convention we follow, and this should be the folder that we move everything to. That said, let's go back. All right, backing up the previously deployed code. So at this point, we just ask the admin whether or not to proceed with the backup. And here, I mean, we have an option to move forward without doing the backup. Let's say if you say no, as you can see, we're not exiting out of the shell process. We're just going to say, oh, backup process skipped by user, and move forward. And this option is there because when we first time deploy a project, there won't be anything to back up, right? So that's when you choose no and move forward. In case you don't choose no, choose yes, it's just going to go ahead and prepare these necessary variables, backup file name, that the convention I just showed you, BK, and the GitHub repo name, and suffix timestamp tar.gz. And with that, we create a backup file path where we have the backup dir, which is /backup, and we add the file name to it, create a full string, and then we create a name for a staging directory. We call it backup staging, and you'll see why. So right here, we just create that directory, staging dir, and once that is created, we just use rsync to take all the content of our app root or GitHub clone except the node module, because we are going to remove this so that we can maintain a smaller file size, because node module we can get any time using npm install. So this does not need to be backed up. That said, the whole thing now is this inside the staging dir, only the code, right? And with that, we just go to the next command, subprocess.run. We just take this folder and create a tarball, zip it up, and put it inside the backup path according to that name. See, with that name and that folder, like this, backup, and this file name. So our backing up is done. And at this point, we no longer need this staging folder. We just rmrf that, remove it permanently. And once that is done, we just write to the log and write to the screen saying backup created successfully. And I added this extra step where we lsltr on that backup directory just to see the content, on the fly. I do that just so that I know how many files have been piling up, so that I can delete some of the old ones, but I will automate the process later on. For now, this is great. And in case there is any other issue or problems during the backup process, this is where we handle the error, write to the log file, and this kicks in when we move forward for the first time. Let's say we forget, oh, we don't need to do the backup, but we move forward anyway, so it doesn't find any code repo to backup. It's just gonna say, hey, there's nothing found, so we're moving on. So we kept measures for pretty much all the situations. With that, our backup process is done. All right, so we are done with the backup process. Next, cloning the GitHub repo. Let's go back. Okay, so this is where we begin our part number 4, cloning the repo. So we initially ask, as usual, yes or no. If yes, we move forward. And at the beginning, we just check for the existence of the previous code repo. If we find it, we ask the admin delete and reclone. If he says why, we just move forward and remove the old repo. And then we prepare the git clone command here, git clone, and we just bring in the new repo as the app root name. And this is mentioned in the app.config file. And then we just go ahead and do a subprocess.run clone command. This is where command gets executed. And once this is successful, we just print out this success message and write to the log. If there is a problem, we handle it right here, write to the log, and exit out of the shell process with this message. And now that our Git repo is ready, we just move straight to the part number 5, where we do what we always usually do, npm install for the dependency installation right here. Once successful, we move forward. If error, we handle it right here. And then we focus on copying the .env.local file. So we have the path variable right here, and then copy confirm. We ask the admin, so hey, are you ready to move this .env.local to the app root? If yes, we just do that right here. Subprocess.run cp env path, and writing that .env.local inside the app root. Once that's moved up, we are ready to run our build. And this is as usual, handling error. So we also at this point stop and ask, are we ready to run the build? If we say yes, we do subprocess.run npm run build, and we choose our current working directory as the app root, making sure it is actually run from there. And once that is successful, we print this out, write to the log, and handle the error right here. And once everything's said and done, we move to the part number 6. And this is where we simply start up the new process. And the rest is, as usual, writing to the log, error handling, and boom, at this point, our application has been successfully deployed right here. So that concludes our walkthrough of deploy.py. Now next would be Next.js SSL-setup.py. All right, so we are back to the part number 2, domain and SSL setup. Same configuration or same directory structure. And this time we're going to talk about Nginx SSL setup.py. We're going to go over this very quickly this time because we covered it in detail in the last video. So admin comes in, runs this script. Script asks, domain ready or not? If the domain is ready, as we have created in the DigitalOcean DNS, we go to the step number 2. It reads the app.conf file and shows us all the environment variables for verification. And once the admin says why, we go to the part number 2, and this is where take that template, Nginx template, which is this guy, nginx-ssl.conf, which should be looking like this. Under conf, this is the basic structure with 3 variables, subdomain, domain, and port, which can be easily collected from the app.conf like this: domain, subdomain, port. That said, let's go back. So once this template is ready, the script then goes ahead and dumps that file under nginx config, which is sites available, and the structure would be subdomain.domain.com, or if you're using just domains, then it would be domain.com. And then the next step, part number 4, we just create a symbolic link from here to here, still under nginx config, but this time it's sites enabled. It's pretty much the exact same file, but it's the symbolic link. So once that's done, we said yes, move to the step number 5, where we run the Certbot, which then talks to Let's Encrypt and collects the necessary certificates and puts them in place, and at the same time goes ahead and updates our main config file with SSL redirection. And once that's done, we are now ready to set up the automatic renewal process right here. And after that, we simply bounce the server or restart the Nginx server. Thus, we end up with our domain or subdomain.com with HTTPS or SSL already set up and ready to go. With that, let's hit the code. All right, so we are at the Nginx SSL-setup.py file, and this is under the sh folder, under the application main, Cyberize shop-next-4000. All right, that being said, let's remove everything and focus just on this one. Initially, we're importing all the necessary libraries, creating the paths, especially for the app.conf, and then we're creating an empty dictionary, which we are filling up with key value pairs after reading the configuration file. And now that all the config variables are in place, now we create all the necessary variables for us for the script using those. And here we're just creating the log file where we're going to be writing everything to. And here are two different functions we are declaring. I mean, like as we did before, I mean, every step of the way we kept writing to the log, and we kept confirming yes or no. Instead, I just created two different functions that we can call repeatedly, and we don't have to repeat the thing over and over, sort of like a dry policy. Don't repeat yourself, right? So this will be writing to the log, and this would be answering the Y or N question by the admin. If the admin says yes, it goes ahead and takes certain actions. Admin says no, depending on what the prompt is, it's going to take actions over and over. So all we have to do now, just keep calling this function in every step. Now, finally, we start our step number 1. We start by asking if the domain or subdomain is ready. If the admin says yes, we move forward. Step 2, configuration verification. This is where we display all the values and tell the admin to verify. If he says yes, we move to step number 3. This is where we take the Nginx config template, which is this guy, and this guy. This is what he looks like, and we take the these variables from the app.conf and replace them right here, and that's what's happening right here. And in case of error, we exit out, or if the admin decides to get out of the entire process, this will take place. And then we come to the number 4, and this is where, now that our Nginx config is ready, so this time we're just gonna write it to the Nginx folder, which is sites available, just like we mentioned here, etc Nginx sites available. That's where we're gonna write it. But before we do, we check for the previously existing file. If it does exist, we ask, should we overwrite? If the admin says yes, we go ahead and overwrite it right here, and then we move forward. We handle error here and skip out right here. And then once the main file is in place, we just create a symbolic link. We follow this command here to remove any previous file. If there is none, then we just move forward and create the symbolic link using ln-s and the rest of the command, write it and create it inside the sites enabled, just like we mentioned right here, part number 4. And once the symbolic link is created, now we are ready to run with the Certbot. And here we create this command with all the necessary arguments, especially this one, dash dash non-interactive, because this way it's not going to stop and ask questions, it's going to just get the job done. And then finally we run the process, subprocess.run certbot command. This is where we execute it, and when this is successful, we get the certifications, the actual certs from the Let's Encrypt, and we go ahead and update. And this process automatically updates this file also, so we don't have to worry about that. So once that's done, it is time for us to run these 2 commands to set up the Certbot timer to automate the renewal process. And in the end, all we have is restarting the Nginx server, and we do it by running this subprocess.run systemctl restart Nginx. We reboot the server, and thus we complete our installation. And in here I actually had one extra step where I was programmatically verifying the existence of the SSL website, but I decided not to use it anymore, so I commented it out. All I'm going to do once this is successful, I'm just going to print out this URL, and all the admin has to do is just control click, and the browser will take care of the verification process, thus ending our SSL and domain setup, having our site up in our domain using HTTPS protocol with the SSL certificates.